Night had already settled across the valley when the owl first rose from the line of leafless trees, its wings unfolding in slow, powerful strokes that pushed against the cold air with quiet certainty. The field below lay bare and pale, covered in a thin sheet of frost that shone faintly under the moon's muted glow. The snow here was shallow, worn down by wind and time, revealing patches of frozen soil and stiff, winter-browned grass. Nothing moved across the open ground. Not a shadow of deer, not the fleeting streak of a hare, only the faint swirl of powdered frost when the wind decided to shift its path. The owl circled high, a pale shape against a darker sky, its feathers catching the moonlight in brief glimmers. Its eyes, round and deep and gold as autumn leaves in warmer months, scanned the field with an unwavering stillness that seemed to belong not to the body, but to the night itself. It did not blink. It simply saw. The owl's flight made no sound. Each movement of its wings was soft as breath, dissolving the air rather than cutting through it. The silence of the hunter shaped by the delicate fringes of feathers that muffled its passage. From below, a human would not know it passed overhead. The small world beneath the snow, however, the voles, the mice curling in narrow tunnels, the cold hearts beating fast in hidden burrows, knew something ancient watched. The owl rotated in its circle again, unhurried. Hunger was present, but not desperate. The body was light, but not weak. The owl had eaten the night before, and it could wait again if the land offered nothing now. The night did not care to ease hunger or sharpen it. It simply was. A farmhouse stood at the edge of the field, distant and small, one window lit with warm yellow firelight. The shapes inside were slow-moving, someone tending the stove, a dog shifting in its sleep, the steady pulse of quiet domestic life. The owl gave them no attention. The life of walls and smoke belonged to another rhythm entirely. Here in the field, time moved differently, measured not in hours or chores, but in breath, in snow, in the faint vibrations of unseen movement. The owl tilted one wing, adjusting the arc of its circle, gliding lower. Its talons flexed once, not in anticipation, but in readiness. A single sound rose from beneath the snow, the faint, brittle crunch of paws or claws, or perhaps something small shifting in its tunnel for warmth. The owl heard it clearly, though no human ear could have found it even inches away. It hovered for a heartbeat, wings held open against gravity, then rode the air upward again. Not time. Not yet. The night was long, the field wide, the hunger patient. Below, the ground stretched vast and pale, its frost catching the moonlight like thin silver threads drawn across the earth. And above, the owl circled, slow, watchful, tireless, while the night, deep and steady, kept its gaze unbroken. The night held its shape without shifting, the darkness neither deepening nor lifting, as though time had stopped somewhere beyond the horizon and left the world suspended in its quiet. The owl continued its circling flight, but now its movements grew lower and tighter, reducing the wide, sweeping arcs into more precise spirals over the central part of the field. The air had grown colder by degrees too subtle to feel directly, but frost was forming again, a thin new layer settling over the one already there. The owl could sense the cold, not as humans do, with skin and shiver, but in the weight of the wind, the density of air, the thickness of silence. Below the surface, beneath inches of snow and frozen soil, life continued in narrow tunnels, warmed only by the heat of small bodies and constant fear. A vole moved again, carefully, nervously, scraping away packed earth as it shifted to a new chamber, where last summer's dried roots and grass were cached. The owl's ears, hidden beneath circular patterns of feathers, caught the faint vibrations. The owl's wings grew still. It now glided entirely, letting the air carry it. It listened, not to noise itself, but to difference. The slight irregular tremor of motion beneath snow, the soft adjustment of tiny claws gripping packed dirt, the movement of fur brushing against frozen root. The owl banked to the right, silent and certain, its body adjusting with a slight tilt of feathers. The farmhouse on the field's edge had gone quiet. The window light had dimmed. Perhaps the fire had been banked for the night. A dog shifted once in the yard, exhaling steam into the air, before curling back into the straw near the stable wall. The owl did not turn its head toward these things. Its gaze remained with the earth. Far across the valley, a fox trotted lightly along a fence line, its reddish coat muted to gray-brown under the moon. The fox paused, nose lifted, recognizing the owl's presence the way some animals recognize a ridge of rock or the curve of a hill. Something given to the land, not to be questioned. The fox did not cross the field. The field, tonight, belonged to the owl. The wind shifted only slightly, enough to ruffle the feathers at the back of the owl's neck. Then, the vole moved again, too quickly, too far from its tunnel's core, perhaps startled by some tremor of cold or simply misjudging distance. This time the owl dropped, not like a falling stone or a diving hawk, but like a shadow deciding to touch the ground. The wings did not flap, they folded. The air did not break around them. It simply reshaped itself to let the owl descend. The snow parted soundlessly. There was only the faintest thump of light weight against earth, and the smallest, briefest scramble beneath. Then all was still. The owl stood for a moment in the frosted field, wings half lifted, breath rising thin and pale. Its talons closed, precise and final. It did not hurry. The night did not require haste. The wind slid across the open ground, stirring loose flakes of snow that moved like thin smoke around the owl's legs. Above, the sky remained unchanged. Below, the earth remained quiet. The owl lifted its catch and spread its wings again, rising easily back into the air. The night continued to watch, with the same unbroken gaze it had held since the owl first rose into its darkness. Nothing had changed, and yet everything had happened exactly as the night allowed. The owl carried its catch to a bare branch near the center of the field, a branch stripped long ago of bark by weather and time, smoothed into pale wood by countless winters. It settled there with a quiet rustle of feathers, adjusting its grip not on the vole, but on the branch itself, steadying its balance as the wind pressed gently against its wings. The field spread silent below, wide and open, the snow reflecting the sky in a muted wash of blue-gray. The owl's head turned slowly, the motion so smooth it seemed to occur without muscle or effort, guided instead by instinct older than memory. Its large, golden eyes scanned not the sky nor the distant trees, but the ground, the quiet, unmarked stretches of frost where movement was rare but never absent. The owl did not feed immediately. Hunger was present, yes, hunger was always present. But it was not a sharp need. It was a companion, a constant presence, like the moon or the cold, shaping behavior rather than forcing it. Below, the field held its stillness in perfect form. The snow had taken on a faint shimmer now, not bright but luminous in the way frost glows when moonlight touches it indirectly. There was no wind for a long moment. The owl could hear nothing but its own breath and the faint settling crackle of cold inside frozen branches. Then, gradually, the world began to speak again. A barn door creaked faintly in the distance, pushed by a shifting draft. Somewhere in the woods beyond the field, a deer snorted once, clearing frost from its nostrils. The fox from earlier appeared again at the field's edge, but this time it did not move along the fence line. It simply sat, tail wrapped around its paws, watching the field with the same quiet patience as the owl. But the owl did not watch the fox. No exchange of threat or challenge passed between them. They simply inhabited the same night, each shaped by the same slow, careful laws of winter. The owl lowered its head and began to eat, tearing the vole neatly and efficiently, its beak moving with practiced precision. The fox turned its head away, not out of politeness, but out of understanding that the moment belonged to the owl, and that hunger must be respected where it resides. When the owl finished, it sat again in stillness, feathers ruffling once as they resettled against the cold. The night deepened but did not darken. The sky remained soft and distant, the moon veiled behind thin cloud that glowed faintly. The owl's gaze drifted across the field again, scanning without urgency. The ground had gone quiet, the tunnels beneath snow stilling into the dormant calm that came when small creatures slept. The owl adjusted its wings and lifted from the branch, rising not high but level, gliding low across the field with slow, graceful strokes. The snow seemed to hold its breath as it passed overhead. The owl circled once more, not hunting now, not searching, but acknowledging the field, the fox, the farmhouse, the narrow line of trees, all part of the night's quiet spine. Then, turning toward the darker woods beyond the field, the owl slipped into the trees, disappearing between branches as easily as a thought fading from waking mind. The fox watched until the owl vanished completely, then turned and walked toward the deeper wood, paws silent against the frost. The field remained bare and still. The night did not shift its gaze. It simply continued, deep, patient, and infinite in its silence. The woods received the owl softly, as though they had been expecting its quiet return. The trees here were taller and older than those along the field's edges, their trunks rising in gray columns that disappeared into darkness overhead. Snow clung to the branches in uneven patches, and where the snow had fallen away, the bark shone faintly with moisture, frozen into a thin, glass-like sheen. The owl flew low now, its wings adjusting with the smallest shifts to navigate between the trees without sound or effort. The forest floor was not smooth like the field. The snow gathered in mounded drifts around fallen logs and stones, leaving shadows shaped like slow-moving water. Beneath the snow, unseen roots and hidden burrows formed a layered world of narrow space, warmth, fear, and survival. The owl moved through the trees, not searching but observing. The forest breathed differently than the field. Here the wind did not move freely. It threaded itself between trunks, whispering against rough bark, carrying scents in faint streams. The owl tasted the air, fragments of pine resin, the cold, clean trace of running water deeper in the woods, the musk of a fox now traveling along the creek bed, and somewhere far, far away to the north, the barely there presence of wolf. The owl did not alter its path. All of these things were simply the night's map, laid out and familiar. It reached a clearing at the center of the woods, though calling it a clearing was generous. The space was small, just enough for a tree that had fallen many years ago, its trunk split by lightning long before snow covered the scar. The fallen tree lay half buried beneath the winter, but the hollow inside it remained dry and shielded from the wind. The owl landed atop the curved surface of the trunk. The wood was old, so old that the rings beneath the bark, if counted, would outnumber the memory of any human living nearby. Moss clung to its underside where snow could not reach, and the air smelled faintly of earth where the frozen ground was exposed. The owl ruffled its feathers once, resettling warmth along its body. There was no urgency. The night did not press. The owl lowered its head, eyes half-lidded, not asleep but resting in a watchfulness that required no movement. From here, everything could be heard, the creak of trees leaning into the weight of cold, the faint shifting of snow falling from branches high above, and even the distant, delicate sound of the creek as water continued to move beneath its icy shell, carving a quiet song through the forest. Some distance away, the fox paused where the trees grew thick, ears pricked toward the clearing. The owl knew the fox remained nearby, not as threat, not as companion, but as another creature held in the same slow gravity of winter night. The fox moved on eventually, its presence drifting out of hearing like breath fading in cold. Farther still, the deer stood at the edge of the frozen creek, bent their heads to drink from a place where ice had cracked open under the pressure of moving water. Their steps were careful, slow, deliberate, their bodies shaped by caution and memory. The owl listened to them as well, not to hunt, but because listening was the way the night was understood. The owl's great dark eyes reflected the faint moonlight through the clouds, giving no glimmer back, absorbing rather than shining. It blinked once, slow, full, thoughtful, and the forest exhaled with it, snow shifting from a branch nearby in a soft, whispering fall. In the human house at the edge of the field, a single lamp flickered, then went dark. The last warmth of day had long since burned off, and the valley belonged fully to the night now. But the night did not change when claimed. It simply continued, unbroken. The owl remained upon the fallen tree, still and unhurried, its feathers rising and settling with the rhythm of breath. Nothing called for motion, nothing demanded choice. The world existed in a perfect, balanced quiet, the kind of quiet that could not be made or forced, only witnessed. And the owl, patient and watchful as the field behind it, was content to do exactly that: remain, see, and keep the night company, while the darkness held everything gently in place. The night moved on in its slow, steady course, though nothing in the forest seemed to change. It was the sort of night where time felt circular, where every moment blended gently into the next without any clear boundary between before and after. The owl remained on the fallen tree, perched in quiet balance, the soft feathers along its chest rising and settling rhythmically with its breath. The air had cooled further, sharpening into a deeper cold that coated every open surface with a fine silver glaze. The snow no longer fell, and the sky had thinned just enough to reveal the faint outline of the moon through high, pale clouds. Its light did not brighten the forest, but spread across it in a thin wash of cool glow, outlining the bare branches like veins against the sky. The owl blinked slowly, and the world remained still. Beneath the snow, life rested. The mice curled tight in grass-lined chambers, the voles pressed together for warmth, the weasel tucked into a hollow between roots. Even the fox had paused somewhere deeper in the woods, its heartbeat slowing to conserve energy. The owl felt these stillnesses in the same way one feels a change in weather, not seen or heard directly, but known, understood in the subtle shift of the air. The wind had quieted to almost nothing, leaving the forest without movement. Every branch, every trunk, every patch of snow stood unmoving, held in a kind of poised silence. The owl turned its head, looking toward the distant field that lay beyond the trees. It could not see the farmhouse from here, but it sensed its presence. Human warmth contained within walls, a separation from the open cold of the land. There were lives there, too, predictable, shaped by clocks and rooms and tasks, so different from the slow, borderless rhythms of the forest. Yet the owl did not judge the difference. There was no division between these worlds, only distance, only edges. A faint sound rose somewhere behind the owl, soft, irregular, like the quiet settling of snow shifting downward along a sloped branch. It did not startle. It simply listened, distinguishing movement from meaning. No urgency, no predator, no prey. The sound faded. The owl adjusted its talons slightly on the smooth surface of the fallen tree, the bark cold beneath them. Far off, the creek continued to run under its ice, a persistent thread of sound weaving through the silence, steady and low, belonging to no hour and answering to no schedule. The owl lowered its head slightly, feathers puffing a little to trap warmth, though the cold did not trouble it. Winter shaped every creature differently, and the owl was shaped precisely for this: long watches, slow hunger, quiet movement, patience without thought. Somewhere above, a thin ribbon of cloud drifted past the moon, and the faint glow shifted gently across the forest floor, changing the shapes of shadows, but not the stillness of the scene. The owl's eyes remained open, their golden color muted in the night but still deep, still alert, still aware. The night was not moving toward anything. It was not building, not resolving, not promising daylight. It simply was, full, complete, steady in its presence. The owl existed within it as naturally as breath exists within living flesh. And so, the owl stayed on the fallen tree, saying nothing, asking nothing, altering nothing, only watching as the world continued its quiet, unspoken life beneath the slow, unchanging gaze of the winter dark.